Hey, this is Max, and welcome to the Ronin System podcast. So today's episode actually was inspired by me watching a movie. It's actually one of my preferred movies. I wouldn't say it's one of my. I like it a lot, but it's not one of my favorites. It's Coach Carter. Coach Carter is a movie starring Samuel L. Jackson from back in like 2002 or something. And it's one of those movies that does get played a lot if you watch a lot of TV. And if you haven't seen it, it's a must watch, in my opinion. Basically, it's a true story. It's about this guy named Ken Carter. I believe it's his first name is Ken, but he's a coach of a basketball team in Richmond, California. And at that time, I believe it was the 90s. Richmond was a very rough area. You know, it's one of those like classic kind of like hood areas. And essentially, what it is Coach Carter. Samuel L. Jackson is this coach of these sort of like it's a shit team. They basically were like 0-17 or something before he showed up. But he shows up and he not only teaches these kids how to work together as a team, how to become good basketball players through hard work, through conditioning, through basically like game planning and tactics, but he also teaches them that there's more to life than this. There's you're not stuck in this rut. You're not stuck here. You're able to succeed in other areas of your life if you try, and it's very inspirational because he takes these kids, he takes these essentially hoodlums, turns them into basketball players, very good basketball players, and then brings them up not just in athletically, but also intellectually, educationally, because he pushes more of sort of that envelope of making sure that you have something to fall back on, trying to get them to college. And there's a lot of statistics that he drops, which I'm sure were true at the time, where he says like 80% of them or like 80% of the graduating class for that year were not going to go to college, which I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that is something that happens in those kinds of areas, in those areas where it's essentially the hood, it's people don't care about them. They don't care about themselves. Education is very, very lacking. There's no funding to these schools. And there's a lot of situations in the movie and I'm sure in real life where, like the parents, the students, the teachers even were saying that basketball was really all these guys had. And that's really sad to think about, there's always these jokes about these popular kids that peak in high school. And I joke about it too, but to me it's one of those sad jokes, because it sucks for these people to peak at high school. That high school is going to be the pinnacle of their lives, the peak of their essentially their success, and that's a very real thing. That when you don't look at just popularity, you look at academics, you look at athletics. That's it. That's all they're going to be. That's all it is to them, and then they're going to grow up and they're going to be worthless. It's a tough truth, but it's true. And every time I watch that movie, every time I see it, I'm always wanting to watch the whole thing because it does sort of motivate me to work harder. It does motivate me to want to succeed. And it always reminds me of this guy I knew from high school who was just an amazing player, amazing football player, great wide receiver, great safety. I mean, he was amazing. And, he almost got picked up by University of Virginia, and University of Virginia actually has a pretty good football team for the area. But, he just couldn't make it. He was amazing at what he did, but he was just from an area of town where no one cared, I mean, I remember back in high school, no one showed up for those games. I think only obviously his parents showed up, but all they cared about was football, Teachers didn't care. They didn't work hard enough with him. I mean, he'd always come to me, and I'd always go to him to help him. I did what I could, but I can only do so much without sacrificing my own stuff, And if you guys, listen to this podcast a lot, I had my own issues. I had my own sort of doubts about myself and sort of overconfidence in my other abilities that really just, it's just that's a whole nother story. But basically, This guy, I always feel bad for him because he could have been pro. He really could have. I felt like he could have, and he's a trash man now. He's a garbage guy, and that's sad. That sucks. It really does suck. And the whole point of this episode is just sort of kind of give you the lay of the land for a movie like that, for Coach Carter, and how it is a reality. It still is a reality, especially in a lot of areas. I think Richmond is still pretty poor, pretty ghetto in California. Richmond, California, not Richmond, Virginia. But something I really wanted to bring up and something I wanted to talk about was a specific quote in the movie. So in the movie, Coach Carter, he interacts a lot with this, essentially he's a gangster. He's a drug dealer. His name is Cruz, I believe, Timo Cruz. And, this guy's like sort of in and on and off the team. He gets on the team, but then he gets off the team because he can't deal with, Coach Carter. Or, he just like doesn't like the rules. He doesn't like this or that. But every time they interact, there's always this one quote that he brings up. There's always this one question that Coach Carter asks him, and he's always asking him, what is your deepest fear? And what is your deepest fear? And towards the end, around the climax, Timo actually gives the response, the correct response that Coach Carter was looking for. And it's a poem. If you guys haven't heard it, it's by Marianne Williamson, I believe. Essentially, it's, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And this is something you hear a lot in those sort of like, I guess like YouTube motivational videos. It's always in the background, along with Rocky. But it's a very interesting poem. It's a very interesting quote because what it's saying is that we are not afraid of failure. We are afraid of success. We as humans know that we are strong. We know that we are capable, but we are afraid of that fact. If you look up the whole quote, there's parts of it where it's talking about how, you try and you try and you try, but what is holding you back is not that you are afraid of failing. It is that you are afraid of being too successful. It's basically saying that you fear greatness, you fear legacy, And of course, this doesn't apply to everyone. There are people that have shot up and achieved greatness, and it was for them a fear of failure. But I've talked about this on the podcast before, where you can't be afraid of failing. Failing is a part of life. There's actually for any of you like developers out there or coders, programmers, I believe there's a very particular sort of mantra. Is that it's fail often, fail better, something like that. And it's essentially what that means is don't dwell on failure and don't be afraid of it. Be accepting of it. Learn from it. Use it. There's no perfect human being out there. There really isn't. And you can't be afraid of achieving something. You can't be afraid of failing to achieve something, because that in itself is success in a way. Because when you fail, you're given the opportunity to look at that failure, to look at where your mistakes were and correct that, to learn from them. And this, our deepest fear sort of thing is essentially, I see it as her trying to say that, yes, we can be afraid of failing. We can not like to fail. Obviously, you don't want to fail in life, but you have the ability to go beyond that. You have the ability to essentially take that and turn it into a success. So really quickly, I'm going to look up the full quote. So that first part I was saying, while I'm looking this up, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. This is what I'm saying. It's just it does have, in my mind, this is how I'm interpreting it, does have a sense of humility, where your belief is that you're not the best. Your belief is that, okay, here we go. Your belief is not that, you're the most talented, you're the most successful. And that's sort of like kind of like a fear that she's portraying it as. But the true deepest fear is that perhaps you are. Perhaps you are the most successful. Perhaps you are the most talented, and I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with that, but it is a very interesting way to sort of motivate yourself. Where, if you guys remember a couple episodes back, I talked about being arrogant. And this is, in a way, similar. It's a sense of confidence, a sense of power in yourself, a belief of power in yourself, where you believe yourself to have true power, to have the ability, the true, complete ability to be successful no matter what you do. And that is a scary thought. It is a scary feeling to have, where the only thing holding you back is truly you, is truly yourself, not this sort of intrinsic fear of failure or whatever. It is truly yourself believing that you don't deserve this. Truly yourself believing that this success, this level of power, this level of talent and skill is something that you don't deserve, that's something you shouldn't be achieving. And there's, throughout the whole quote, it's just talking about how no matter what, you have this potential within you. You have this ability within you. There's some God talk here, but I'm not going to go into that. And towards the end, actually, there's another portion. This was also mentioned in the movie, where she talks about how when you sort of tackle this, when you accept this deepest fear, when you believe truly that nothing can hold you back, that you are brilliant, that you are talented, that you are powerful beyond measure, when you believe that, when you recognize that, you allow others to recognize it within themselves. I like that. It's really motivational, because when you see someone be successful, that's motivation, right? Like, if you're ever scrolling on Instagram, if you're ever on social media, you see these other people, they've got nice cars, they've got nice houses, they've got a lot of money. Maybe if you're not motivated by that, they're successful. They're super successful in something you want to be successful in. Like, let's say you want to be a professional athlete, and you see guys like LeBron James. You see guys like Cristiano Ronaldo. You see all these, or these MMA fighters, these jiu-jitsu guys, looking at these people that are more successful than you. It does motivate some people, and I think that's where this quote sort of takes hold towards the end in this regard. And what I mean by that is, this is a portion of the quote where it shows that when other people accept their own abilities, when other people accept their own potential and their own power, it allows us to accept our own. It allows us to look at that and be like, I can be that. To look at ourselves and say, I am capable. I can reach that. That is my potential. And I really like sort of that mentality. But probably the most enjoyable part, probably my most favorite aspect of this quote, of this poem, that I'm taking from it, is that it is our deepest fear. No matter what your deepest fear is, whether you're afraid of failure or whether you're afraid of success, it doesn't matter. You have a fear. And to me, it's saying that we should accept our fear no matter what it is. It's saying that you can be afraid. And I've said this before, where you can be afraid. Fear is a natural response for the human mind. It's totally acceptable to be afraid. I am afraid of quite a damn lot of things. And I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. And that's what's going to allow me to move forward. It's not going to make me stuck here. And that's something that does happen to some people, where, that maybe they're not afraid of failure, but they do fail over and over and over again. And subconsciously, they block it. They have this fear of failure that they don't even realize. And I think if we are able to accept the true fact, that no matter what happens, we are who we are. And no matter what happens, we are capable of what we're capable of, and we have the potential to do what we set our mind to. then no matter what, we should be able to get back up. It's like if you look at, I believe it was FDR. Someone said that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I think that plays really well into this poem, where it's talking about, really it is, no matter what your deepest fear is, the idea is to overcome it. The idea is to beat it. And even more so within this quote, within this poem, is to accept yourself. Accept yourself for who you are. No matter how you look at yourself, you must look at yourself as truly powerful. Even if you're not. I recognize that I have flaws. I'm human. But humans are strong. Humans have power. And I have that power. And I have that a belief in myself to achieve more than I'm capable of. To be powerful beyond measure. I'm not afraid of that. And that's what's going to help me move forward. So basically, I just wanted to sort of bring this poem to light. If you have the time, it's actually a decently short read. I think it's, looking at it, it's like 5 or 6 paragraphs. Very easy, very quick read. And by paragraphs, I mean sort of like verses. So it's like two or three sentences per paragraph. So it's not that long at all. And I definitely recommend reading this poem and watching Coach Carter. If you haven't seen it, it's a good movie. It's a great movie. Actually, it's one of the only Samuel L. Jackson performances that I actually like. I'm not a huge fan of him, but, it is what it is. It's not like he cares. But, yeah, I just wanted to sort of talk about that for a little bit. Either way, thank you guys so much for listening. I know I've been rambling a lot. I have been trying to get guests on. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult during these times, and I'm not a big fan of, video calls, virtual calls, just because there is a latency in it. There is the delays. But we'll see how it goes. If you guys want to be on the show, reach out to me, get in touch. If you guys are new and you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe or follow, no matter what platform you're using. Like it or dislike it, leave a review, leave some ratings. That's a good way to help. Unless you don't want to help, then fuck you. But thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing day. Get out there, get hungry, and good luck.